Help me hit 4,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. I never thought a simple Saturday night could change everything. Parties were usually a blur. Laughs, drinks, music, and the occasional awkward conversation. But this one, Claire's friend's annual summer bash, was different. I had gone along more out of obligation than desire, knowing Rachel would want to see her colleagues, meet new people, and have a night away from our routine. I didn't mind. I liked parties in theory. It was the unpredictability that never sat right with me, and tonight the unpredictability was staring me straight in the face. We arrived around 8, Claire in her elegant emerald dress that hugged her frame just right, laughing like she'd stepped into a world made entirely for her. I followed, a little stiff in my navy blazer, holding a drink I wasn't even sure I wanted. People waved, hugs were exchanged, and the soft hum of conversation swirled around me like a river I was standing in. For the first hour, everything was normal. I even smiled a few times, letting her shine while I faded quietly into the background. That was my role most nights, supportive, steady, the one who never demanded attention, but silently carried the weight of our life together. I should have noticed the first flicker of tension when we were standing by the bar, and Claire leaned slightly closer than usual. I felt her hand brush mine, not the casual, fleeting touch I'd grown accustomed to, but deliberate. My chest tightened without reason. It was subtle, almost playful, and I almost laughed it off. Parties are full of subtle signals, after all. Misreadings are part of the game. But that night, my instincts were screaming at me not to ignore the signs. Hours passed. Drinks loosened tongues, and the music encouraged movement, laughter, and flirtation. I tried to enjoy myself, speaking to Claire's colleagues with polite smiles, nodding at stories I barely heard, and occasionally laughing at jokes that landed too hard or too soft. And then the moment came. I wasn't sure I was ready for it, and maybe that's why my reaction was so immediate. Claire, standing close in the warm glow of fairy lights, turned to me with eyes I couldn't quite read, lips slightly parted, and leaned forward, just enough for me to know her intention. She wanted a kiss. For a heartbeat, everything froze. The chatter of the room became muffled, the clinking of glasses a distant echo. I remember thinking, this is it. This is a moment we either cross or retreat from, and it will define everything after it. I turned my head just enough to avoid her subtly, almost reflexively. And then silence. The kind of silence that hits you from all directions. Not quiet, not polite hush, but the raw electric pause of time acknowledging that something had shifted. The reactions were instantaneous. Some guests froze mid-step, mid-laugh, mid-toast. Others looked between us with confusion, mouths open but no words forming. Claire pulled back, her smile faltering, and I saw the first flicker of hurt. Or was it shock? My own heart pounded, not out of desire, but from the sheer intensity of what I had just done. I hadn't rejected her out of anger or spite. I hadn't even thought about consequences. My decision was instinctual, a hardwired recognition that crossing that line, even for a brief, stolen moment, was dangerous, not because of her, but because of what it revealed about us. I stepped aside, offering her space, giving the world back to her. My mind raced, replaying everything about our marriage, the subtle fractures I'd been ignoring. For years I had been the steady one, the responsible one. I planned. I remembered anniversaries, I bought thoughtful gifts, and I smiled through her moods, through her distractions. I carried her weight when she asked me to and carried mine when she expected me to. And yet, tonight's action, small as it was, unveiled the truth we'd both known but never spoke aloud. Desire had faded, intimacy had frayed, and the spark we had once depended on had grown cold. Claire looked at me, eyes wide, searching, and I understood that she wanted me to reassure her, to lean in despite everything, to pretend that we were something we weren't anymore. But I couldn't, not tonight. Not like this. I looked at her, calm but resolute, and shook my head just slightly. A subtle movement, but enough to communicate refusal without words. And in that small gesture, the room seemed to gasp. It wasn't the world that went silent, it was our world. In that moment, surrounded by people, I realized we were alone together. Alone in the truth we had been dancing around for years. Everyone else became background noise, unimportant. My gaze didn't waver from hers, but my heart held a strange mixture of clarity and pain. I wasn't angry, though a flicker of resentment warmed my chest. I was clear-headed, seeing the reality that our marriage, once full of laughter, late-night talks, and shared dreams, had become performative, a stage where we played roles for friends, colleagues, and strangers. And then came the questioning. Claire opened her mouth and I braced myself. "Why?" she whispered, voice trembling slightly, betraying more emotion than any of our years together had allowed. But I didn't answer immediately. Words, I realized, were insufficient. Actions had spoken louder than anything we had exchanged over the past decade. My refusal, simple yet deliberate, said everything. I will not participate in something that is not real. I will not pretend desire where none exists. For what felt like an eternity, the room remained motionless, watching. Then a single laugh, nervous and uncertain, broke the spell. Someone at the far end of the living room muttered a joke, and the tension shifted slightly. But I didn't move to join them. I remained rooted in place, grounded by a truth that had finally emerged from the fog of routine, comfort, and unspoken frustrations. Later, outside on the balcony, I finally exhaled. The cool night air brushed against my skin, sharp and liberating. I could hear music and conversation inside, but it no longer belonged to me. Claire stepped out behind me, hesitating at the doorway. For a moment I thought she might try again, some desperate attempt to reclaim what had been lost, but she didn't. Instead, she stood there silent, watching. I didn't turn to her. I didn't speak. I let the moment pass, letting the silence speak for both of us. The truth was harsh, undeniable. We had changed. Not suddenly, but gradually, like water eroding stone. Love hadn't disappeared overnight, it had been quietly retreating, leaving us exposed, vulnerable, and uncertain. Tonight, the kiss that never happened became a symbol of choice, of recognition, and of courage. I chose clarity. I chose honesty, even if it stung. I chose to respect both of our realities instead of pretending otherwise. That night, I realized that silence can be louder than words, and truth, even when uncomfortable, is a freedom in itself. By the end of the party, the whispers and curious glances faded. Claire and I left separately. No dramatic arguments, no raised voices. Just a quiet drive home. The hum of the engine a soft accompaniment to my thoughts. I understood finally that intimacy isn't only physical. It's mutual desire, respect, and acknowledgement. When any of those is missing, even love itself becomes hollow. That night, in the stillness of my apartment, I sat on the couch and replayed the evening in my mind. The shock, the tension, the subtle heartbreak of watching someone you care for cross lines you cannot follow. It all settled into a quiet clarity. I wasn't abandoning Claire. I was abandoning the illusion that things were still the same. And in that abandonment, I found an unexpected relief. Freedom isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the still, weightless silence after a decision that everyone else failed to see. And as I turned off the lights, listening to the faint city hum outside my window, I felt it, a strange, thrilling mixture of grief and liberation. For the first time in years, I was awake, alert, and alive. Not in reaction to someone else's desire, but in tune with my own. The night had been a revelation, the party a stage, and the kiss that never happened a lesson I would carry forever.